Hello and welcome to the Alpha Software Demo and Q&A webcast. I'm Dave McCormick, VP of Product Management here at Alpha Software. Today we are going to be covering a request we had a few weeks ago. The request was on repeating sections. So it's an older feature. It's been in the UXs for quite a while, actually. It might be old enough to vote. Well, not quite that old, but it is a neat feature, and we're going to go through the hows, what's, whys, and wheres, and also a couple new features have been added to this in the last release that came out a few months ago. Before I go any further, though, as I usually do you see the word repeating sections on your screen? If so, could you let me know in the chat window or in the questions box? I just want to make sure. Oh, wonderful. Thank you very much. Looks good. All right, cool. So let's move on. Let's start with the definition, and this definition is from ChatGPT. It stole it from documentation, but it's really good. And here's the link. I'm actually going to give you this link because I created a chat just on repeating sections that you might find interesting. I'm going to paste this into the chat window here. Hit send. There we go. And so we'll start a little bit at the beginning. When you're building a web or mobile application in Alpha anywhere, chances are you're going to be using a component called the UX component. There are other components there, but the UX is typically the one that is used now. Within the UX component, we often insert a control called a list control. And list controls are great. They can handle data from a variety of different data sources. They can be connected to other lists and things like that. But lists aren't the only way to display data. In fact, a slightly older way, but a perfectly valid way of doing it, is by binding the database to the UX so that the UX is aware of the data source, and you could start laying down fields directly on the UX that point to a field in the database. So what happens though when you come to master detail or parent-child, in other words, relational types of data, is that you'll find yourself in a position where you'll have basically fields that need to be listed out multiple times. And the typical example of that is in an invoice. So an invoice has got a header, but an invoice has got, which might have the customer's name and where it's going to be shipped and what the date is. And underneath, you're going to have multiple line items. So in order to display those multiple line items on the screen and not have them just, appear like just the first one, you place them in what's called a repeating section in a UX. So today I'm going to show you how basically we're going to be doing all live demo here today, which should be fun. And we're going to be using a database called AdventureWorks instead of our typical Northwinds database because I decided to mix things up. We're going to be binding that AdventureWorks database to a UX. We're going to be binding fields to that. We'll be adding repeating sections, binding the repeating section. I'll show you what that means. We'll be doing some formatting. We're also going to be doing some calculations and some summary values. And then I'm going to point you to some of the tons of sort of JavaScript actions that if you want to add some programmatical elements to it, that can be added to it, as well as a new feature which includes pagination now in repeating sections. So can't wait to get started. Again, if you've got questions, though, type them into the questions box of the GoToWebinar control panel. All right, so let's go into the demo. Let's pop over here, and we're going to go in here. So right now, what you're looking at is hang on a second while I open up my GoToMeeting control panel so I know what's going on. That's weird. Hang on one second. Okay. There it is, great. Okay. Just having a small technical issue on my side, but it will be resolved shortly. Okay, great. So let's go back into here. Okay, so here is we're going against what I said, the AdventureWorks database. So let's just take a quick look at the structure of that. I'm going to open up SQLite. And the AdventureWorks database, if you Google this, you'll be able to download this yourself. It's a free database. I believe it's from Microsoft, and it's used as an example when there's for SQL Server. I happen to be using it with SQLite, but you can find a SQLite version as well. So AdventureWorks is also a shop, kind of like the Northwinds was. So it's got customers and it's got products and it's got sales. So the sales are broken down, as we often do, into an order header and order details. So in the order header, I'm going to click on that, click data, and that would have things like the customer ID, the order ID, the date that the order was put in, and things like that. And then under order detail, we have what the specific products were, how much each of them cost. Click on data. How much each of them cost, and how many were ordered, and so on. And so what we want to do, and of course, product sales order header is also linked to customer, so you know who purchased it. So what we've done here is we've built a really simple UX with the repeating section. I'll show it to you here. And here you can see, here's the invoice ID, here's the date, here's the company name from the customer database, and here are the items that were bought, and I can navigate through them, and I can come up with calculations, and I can come up with a total here at the bottom. So the question was, how do I set up a repeating section, and how do I do compute summary values and stuff? So this is what we're going to handle here today. So I'm going to just close this. We'll just start again. And we're going to do web component UX. Okay. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to bind our table. Actually, first thing that I always like to do is I'd like to just put not a text box, but a static text up at the top. That's just me. And I'm going to say repeating section example. And once you add one control, you're able to save a component. So I'm going to call this repeat 3. Okay. So we're going to start with data binding. Data binding means that we're going to tie that AdventureWorks database directly here to our UX. And so we're going to do that by clicking on bind the controls of your UX fields to one or more existing tables. So I clicked OK there, and then it says, OK, specify the tables. So here is a connection string that I have already built to the AdventureWorks database. So I'm going to choose AdventureWorks. And now that I've selected a database, I need to add at least one table. And I'm going to just start with one table for now. The table that I'm going to start with is going to be the invoice table. So I'm going to select that, or what's called sales order header. Click OK on that. OK. OK again. And there we go. You can see it right here in the summary. Now I'm going to go under controls, and I'm going to add 3 text boxes so I can create multiple at once. And this is going to be, let's see, the invoice ID and the date and the customer. And I'm going to click OK. And it's created them. Now at this point, because we've bound this to the data, we can actually now go into properties and tell these fields which fields they're supposed to map to in our database. So I'm going to scroll down here. Here's invoice ID, and we're going to go down to data binding, and I'm going to say the table I want is the sales order header. And the field name I want is, since this is invoice ID, we're going to go sales order ID. And then for date, oops, I'm going to choose the table first. Same table. And we'll go with order date. And with customer, oops, do that again. With customer, we are going to choose, unfortunately, we don't have the customer name here. We could only go with the customer ID because that's all that's in the table for now, but we'll put that in. So there's customer ID. All right, cool. I'm going to go ahead and save that. And then I'm going to go into working preview. And I bet nothing is going to show. And let me see how many experts we have on the call here today. Come on, let me open this up again. And my question to you is, okay, why is nothing showing? Yeah, I bound the controls. Yep, bound the controls. Note they already bound. That's good. I'll give one more question. Why am I saying nothing? This is the one that always gets me. So that's why I'm doing this as a quiz so that you guys will remember too. When you bind these and when you open up the web, the first thing you have to do is you have to run a small piece of server-side code um, on its on dialog initialize event that actually tells it to load the data. And this is really easy to do. I just go up here, I click on action scripting. So I choose a server-side event. So this is the event, this is the piece of code that will run as soon as the component is loaded. And I'm going to go into action scripting and I'm going to choose load primary keys from parent table. That's all I have to do. I can limit the number of keys to load to 1,000. That's fine. I can set no limit, but I'm just going to leave it there. And I'm going to save that. And now, yes, don't show this again, but yes. And now I'm going to go into working preview. And voila, it has pulled out the data from the fields. That's great. Looks like the data's cut off. So the first thing I want to do is maybe make these fields a little bit bigger. So I'm going to set that to 50%. I think I can set multiple. I can. I'm going to set them to 50% using my little dialog, my little percentage thing there. And then the next thing I want to do is I want to be able to move from record to record. So we're going to do that by putting in some navigation controls. We're going to do that in defined controls. I'm going to scroll down here until I find the navigation ones. Those are the ones for the list. And these are the ones. I can do either buttons or icons. I'll choose icons. And I'll put them down there. And while I'm here, I'm going to put date and customer and invoice ID all on the same lines. So let's save that. Let's see what we've got. All right, so now as I click, 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 click. Oh, it's not on the same line because I set it to 50%, but that's fine. Set these to smaller. Okay, so now we want to see, we can now see the invoice ID, the date, and the customer, but we want some more information. Like we want the customer's actual name, and we want to know what they bought. So we're going to go back into data binding, and we're going to connect up a few more tables to our UX control. So here we are in data binding. I'm going to click again that same link, bind the controls under UX, and I'm going to specify the tables. And we are going to add a table. And this one is going to be the details so that we see what they actually ordered. And this is a one-to-many relationship, meaning there could be multiple items in each order. We're also going to, on order detail, add the products table because the products table actually contains the name of the product, and that's what we want to have displayed, not just the product ID. So we'll say product. And this isn't going to be one-to-many. This will be one-to-one. Each product only has one name. So we'll click OK on that. Sales order header, we're going to add a table, and we're going to choose customer. And that's also going to be one-to-one, only one customer per order. And now that looks pretty good. The only thing I have to do now is tell it how these tables relate to each other. So in the case of sales order ID, I'm going to choose the parent field, sales order ID, and that matches the field, the child field here. Product, the field that it has in common with the order detail is its product ID. And for customer, it's going to be customer ID as its common field. All right, so that is all set up. But it's given me a little quick warning here, and that said that you've previously defined one or more server-side actions, but now which we did a moment ago, remember when we told it to load keys. But now we've made some changes to that structure, so we need to regenerate that code. So it's giving us a little bit of a notice here. That's easy enough to do. I'm going to click OK on that. We're going to go into server-side, and I think just adding something like that is enough for it to regenerate. We'll see. If it doesn't, I'll add that code back in a second. And now we're going to go into controls. And underneath our navigation controls, let's start putting in some of the invoice fields. So let's put in, let's grab a text, control text box, and we're going to do multiples. So we're going to have the product name would be good. So we'll call that product. And then we want the price of the product and the quantity. Oh, and then let's also come up with a calculated field extension. We'll multiply price times quantity. So we'll click OK on that. All right, there we go. And now we need to tell it what these fields relate to. So we'll start with product. We'll move down into data binding. And this is where you'll run into an issue. I'm going to say, okay, the table I want is the product table. But when I click on it, it's not there. There's no product table. Like, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. The same deal when I come to price of the product, there's no product table. And, oh, sorry, there's no invoice item table and so on. And the reason is because these are now in one-to-many fields. So it wouldn't make sense to put these directly on my form. You'd only see the first one. Instead, what we want to do is we want to put them into a repeating section. So here's where our repeating section comes into play. I'm going to select all my fields, and keep in mind a repeating section is simply a container type. So under containers, I'm going to choose container. I'm going to choose repeating section. Okay. Now, this is almost ready, but it's not quite ready to go. Because if we wanted to now map our field, our product field or our price field, let's do the price field first. You will see table alias, a warning. And the warning is data binding properties for this dialog box have been defined. You must first go to data binding pane and select a command, and you will need to specify the repeating section to which it's bound. So in other words, go back up in here, data binding. We're going to click again on that bind the controls link. And this time we have a new button that's popped up because we have a repeating section. So bind tables to repeating section. We're going to click on that. Now we just have to say what it wants to be bound to, and it's going to be bound to the order detail. All right, we'll click OK on that. And we'll go back into controls, and now we should be in business. I should be able to now have access to all my tables. Here's my product, or all the child tables. There's my product. The field name we're going to fill in is the product name. There's the price, which we're going to pull from the order detail. It's like unit price. That's the quantity that they ordered. Again, order detail. And we'll go down to order quantity is order quantity. There we go. All right, let's save that. Let's take a look and see what we've got so far. I realize I haven't defined the extension field yet. Oh, but let's put these all on the same line. So I'm going to shut off the line breaks. And there's 4 of these, so we'll give them 25% each, so they should fit. I'm going to save it. And let's go into working preview. Oh, that looks a little better. So now as I move from item to item, I'm sorry, from invoice to invoice, you'll see that the items here are listed. So let's keep going. Let's talk about now doing a calculation, and let's do a summary here at the bottom. So, and then it looks like we'll need to do a little formatting because this is how they're actually stored in the database. I don't know why they have fractional prices, but they do. I guess it's a wholesaler thing. We'll go back into design, and this time we're going to set up that extension field, which of course is price times quantity. So to do that, we're going to just scroll down here into where we see client-side properties. And one of the things we can do is we can do a calculated field expression. This is going to be a calculated field. So to do that, I'm going to insert the product, the price. And I'm going to multiply it by the quantity. And if I've done it right, when we go into working preview, we should see our calculation being performed in the far right column. And there we go. So let's do a little formatting on this. Two things. One is I realize quantity usually comes before price. I could just hit the up arrow to move that. We're going to go into price, and we want to format that. And we can do that again here in client-side properties. We can do client-side formatting. Format type, I have a choice between a mask and custom. What I really want is a number format. And the reason I don't have that displayed is I've inserted this as a text box, but that's no problem at all. In fact, I can grab all three of these. In fact, I'll just grab the price one. We'll go up to the top. We'll say the control type, variable name. Type shouldn't be character. It should be a numeric. And then if I want to be very clever, I can set all the other fields here using this little eyedropper. And I could say, I want this one, basically all three of these to be numeric as well. So as I move from one to the next, they're all numeric. Great. So now when I go into price and I go down into formatting, client-side formatting, I now have a number is one of my options. And so I can click on format definition, and I'm going to say that it's got a blank value, maximum round the value to 2 decimal points. And if I want to, I can add 1,000 separator. And I can choose what those are. So, if you're in the UK and you do the period and the comma backwards, then the US, you can switch those. All right. And then we'll go into extension, and we'll do the same sort of formatting there. So we'll go down into client-side formatting. Format type is number. There we go. Definition, again, is going to be, oh, I already set that one up. Must have been quantity, the one I forgot to do. We'll do quantity right here. Client-side formatting. No, I don't have to do that one. Maybe price. That's good. And that's good. Okay, I guess we're all set. Must have done it and not paid attention. Sorry. I'm looking through the comments here. Someone said you had 3 fields set at 50%. Yeah, I did that. I want to give 150%. Look at this. This is great. This is all got, everything is nicely rounded to 2 decimal points. Now let's put a total at the very bottom. And so underneath here, we're going to add in a new field. Control, we're going to do a text box. Again, it's going to be called total. We'll click OK. And now what we're going to do is we are going to set an expression on this one. So what we're going to do is we actually want to put in, what we want to do to figure this out is the total is going to be the summation of all of the extensions. So basically we want a sum of this field. And when a field is in a repeating section, a sum, average, standard deviation, some other things are things that you can actually calculate very easily. Once you're in here, you just have to go down to select the field you want. In this case, it's extension. And we're going to go down to, it's called calculate summary fields. And because I don't see it immediately, I'm just going to use the little search thing here. Calculated fields. Oh, I think the word is summary. Sorry, compute summary values is what we're looking for. So we're going to click on that. And all that means is that for this one, you want Alpha Anywhere to have access to not just the value, but also the averages, the sums, and so on. So when we're here in total, I can go down and set a default expression, or even a calculated expression is fine. I'm going to insert a field, And check this out. See where it says summary.ext count, total, average, first, last, minimum, maximum, standard deviation, variance. We have all of these options now available to us. I'm going to grab total. That's the one we want. Click OK. And while we're here, we may as well format it. Client-side formatting. We're going to do this as a number. It's not available, so I need to set this to a, oops, set this to a number. And the format type is going to be number. Definition. Yeah, same deal. This is good. Save that. And we're going to take a look here in working preview. Now, what do we have? We have our total here at the bottom. So we've done calculations, we've done totals, and we've done a repeated section. So let me just take a look, make sure I've covered everything I wanted to do here. We began by getting the AdventureWorks database, and we bound it to our UX. Then we added some fields, and importantly, we went into design. We went into server-side events. We went to the onInitialize event, or onDialog initialize, and we used action scripting to load in our keys. And then from there, it was just a matter of laying down controls. When we came to a control that was part of a one-to-many relationship, we put them into a container called a repeating section, and we bound that container here, as we did with the other ones. So that kind of covers what I wanted to cover for our live demonstration. If there are questions, again, go ahead and type them in. Actually, before I go any further, someone pointed out something clever, which we just saw, which was when I set the number format for one field, it looks like it used that as the default for all the other ones when I told it I wanted to do a number format, which is actually pretty cool because almost all the time when you go to a number format, it's going to be that you're going to want to have some sort of decimal separator and possibly 1,000 separator, but you're going to want to use the same one over and over again. So that's just something you can do. All right, so let's go back into the slideshow. There's two other things I want to show you. And this is for UX basic folks out here. I mean, your JavaScript people out here. There are a million methods that can be applied to repeating sections. You can get the total number of rows. You can resize it to the exact count. I'll show you what that means in a second. You can append a new row. You can remove and hide specific rows. You can duplicate the active row, copy the values, get the index of it, exchange values between two rows, move them around, show and hide columns. So there's a whole bunch of things that you can programmatically do using these methods. You'll find them in our documentation. Do a search for repeating section. You can also do a chat GPT search. It seems to be perfectly capable of, and that's actually how I generated this list here. The last thing, the one thing I wanted to show you is a little interesting behavior. So you see where it says resize to the exact size. You will notice when I'm running this, and okay, so here are some longer ones, but when I get to a short one that only has like 1 or 2 items in it, I think there are a few of them. Aha. You're going to see that there are a couple of blank lines, and that's just the design of this control. If you want, that JavaScript thing can always make sure that this is kept tight. All right, actually, there were 2 other things I wanted to cover. One is that before you go too far down the path of using repeating sections, as you can see, they're really simple to set up. Do keep in mind that they have a couple of limitations. For example, if you want to do searching in them, it's not as easy to set up as it is with a list control. And list controls are also fairly easy to set up, not quite as easy. But list controls have the big advantage of being able to work in an offline mode, whereas here we're doing all of these calls. We're data binding basically directly to a live SQL database. So this works great as long as you have a connection. So, a web application, perfect, or even a mobile, this will work fine. It'll size properly on a phone, but keep in mind that phone will have to have connection in order to use the application. So that's the caveat there. If you're using lists, they retain some functionality when signal is dropped, which is one of the cool things about lists. Lists also make it really super easy to do searches and finds. You can do that here. It just requires writing a little bit of code. Okay, so I've shown you the JavaScript. I've talked about searching. The last thing I want to do, or the final thing I want to do, is I want to show you, oops, hang on a second. We have added recently some new features or a new feature for the repeating section. I'll show it here. This is based on a customer request, and it is pagination. So with repeating sections pagination, you can now scroll through and show, a certain number at the same time. So in the case of what I set up, you were looking at invoice items. So you could, for example, show just 5 invoice items at a time and be able to navigate through them one way or the other. Pagination is great if you're talking about gigantic lists and you want to make it, a comfortable experience for the person to load it and scroll through. So I think that is about it. Let me see if there are any other questions. All right. Wow, that looks like it. Looks like I got all the questions today. Wonderful. Hey, thanks very much. If you do have questions on this or anything, of course, always send them to guides, guides@alphasoftware.com. If you got suggestions for a webinar, something you'd like covered, we always take those as well. So thanks very much, and I look forward to seeing you guys next week at our next Alpha Software demo and Q&A webcast. Until then, take care. Thanks. Bye-bye.